Day after day, there has been negative news about the Walt Disney Company. Constantly in trouble, especially with this latest audit out of Florida. But many viewers of this channel wonder, will Disney ever be held accountable? Perhaps they are the true Teflon, and nothing will come to pass. However, we are joined today by Andrew of Legal Mindset, an attorney with a fascinating history, specifically in special districts of Florida. How about that? And he's here to break down exactly what is the secret message we believe sits inside the Disney responses to this entire situation. You don't want to miss it. You'll find out exactly how this playbook is going to play out. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to the WDW Pro channel, where we endeavor to explain entertainment, keep you ahead of the culture curve. Joining us today is Andrew of Legal Mindset once again, and he is our resident specialist when it comes to everything legal regarding special districts. And it just so happens that Disney has a special district issue right now, the biggest issue they have anywhere in the world. Andrew, as you take a sip, welcome back to the Pro channel.
Yes. Thank you, and I appreciate being back here today, bright and early of the morning, right here as we're recording for me in Asia. But specifically, we are at a critical juncture here. We're at a juncture that has been a long time coming. That is the federal case, Disney's federal case. And mind you, they have both a state and a federal case. But in that federal case, which is the one they've really been focusing on, freedom of speech, political speech, well, they're at a juncture where the case may be dismissed, may actually be thrown out of court. And at this very juncture, with their final one count, they started with 6 counts in federal court. Disney has, by their own admission, dismissed all but one count in that case. So that case may absolutely go away as Florida DeSantis attempts to dismiss that and the attempt to remove that case from court altogether. This would be an absolutely a hammer blow to Disney, particularly as they now fall under a lot of increased scrutiny from the audit, and they still are leaning on generally the defense that everything that's thrown against them, that any criticism is all because of political repercussions. This is all essentially retaliation, every single thing. So they're using it as carte blanche immunity against pretty much any wrongdoing that they've done, including wrongdoings that were done over 60 years, over the past decade. So
let's talk, Andrew. Yeah, let's talk about those wrong things. There are many people who are probably tuning into the channel for the very first time. They don't know what we're talking about when we talk about these bad things that Disney is alleged to have been doing. Now, on this channel, thus far, we have talked with great specificity regarding misuse of municipal bonds, utilities fraud, improper commodity trading, potential bribery of local politicians, and government capture. And that's not even getting into everything that we still have remaining, including hiring practices that they seem to be illegal because they were based on race and racial quotas. So all of that, of course, we'll be looking into, but and all of this is still alleged at this point. But
alleged, yes.
There's 2 things, Andrew, that I want to touch on. And the first thing is that part of what we are basing this off of is that the audit produced a number of prima facie exhibits. You might call those pieces of evidence. So could you explain to the audience out there what is prima facie and why is it more important than he said, she said, hearsay?
So prima facie is just Latin, and a lot of lawyers love fancy Latin words, but prima facie just means simply on its face. So based on the facts that you have alone, those facts, just the fact that those facts exist, the fact that a thing happened means that you are guilty of it. Think of a very clear crime, like a crime, for example, that might be like failure to pay your taxes. Right? It doesn't matter if you had a really great excuse, if your dog ate your 1040, none of that's relevant. What is relevant is that you did not pay your taxes. And if you don't pay your taxes, that's pretty much then the end game, right? That's the prima facie on its face. So in Disney's case, there are several instances, and we've gone over that, like Pro said, misappropriating public funds, misusing bond funds, failure to disclose regarding the bonds, municipal rules board violations regarding securities. There's multiple things that all they have to do is do it, or rather not do it, and they're guilty of the crime. So Florida submitted 78 pages of evidence. Many of those pieces of evidence are on their face by themselves, evidence in Florida of Florida crimes. As a Florida attorney, I look at them and I say, wow, the Attorney General of Florida, as soon as they see these, can file criminal charges just based on the evidence alone. So that's why this is a particularly damning case for Disney. And this is why Disney is attempting to essentially hide this and wrap it up with the freedom of speech argument in the federal case, which is why, for today's topic, it is so relevant that this case may be dismissed. If this case is dismissed, Disney can no longer deflect. They have to openly admit they are facing serious criminal liability.
Now, Andrew, you've segued perfectly to my next question, and that is that in all of these videos we've done, we have laid out a tremendous amount of potential wrongdoing for the Walt Disney Company. And it's unlike anything that I have ever seen with any other entertainment company. It's unlike anything I've ever seen with any other corporation. There are other corporations which have done horrible things. This is at a different level than I'm used to seeing, because it involves government capture, allegedly, which is just bizarre. Now, that said, in every one of these videos, we will see a number of commenters, a tremendous number, perhaps the majority, who will say, yes, but nothing is ever going to happen to Disney. Nothing is going to happen to the people who perpetrated this if they did so indeed. Andrew, do you believe that Disney will be able to get off scot-free here, or do you think that they will be held accountable for their actions if they are guilty thereof?
I'm sure nothing will ever happen to us is exactly what the people at Enron were thinking up until the moment where, well, something happened to them. So, yes. It's never, if you think about the great financial crisis, the GFC, right? Bear Stearns, everybody else on Wall Street. Oh, nothing would ever happen. Nothing can ever go wrong. We can never fail. We're too big to fail. That's always the sign of hubris before the fall. Like, oh, we're immune to this. In fact, when I hear that, that is a green flag for something to happen. In fact, it appears that that attitude is precisely what got them in trouble. I think that attitude, if you go back and look at the evidence that's been submitted, it appears to be a consistent theme is, well, we can just do kind of whatever we want. Nothing will happen to us. The rules don't apply to us. The laws don't apply to us. This was a common thought by not just Disney employees, by people at Reedy Creek, the higher ups, the upper management at Reedy Creek, which was Disney's special district before it transitioned to the cftod under DeSantis. But this is something that is absolutely a path to criminality. It's absolutely a path to failure. And we're seeing that things are happening to Disney, right? The fact that this audit has come out, the fact they've now been reported to the IRS, things are going to happen to the folks at Disney. And there absolutely is the possibility of serious charges, including criminal charges coming against people at Disney. And this can go all the way to the top. This can go up to RICO charges against Bob Iger. That is a possibility. I'm not saying that it's probable, but it is certainly possible, and it certainly can happen based on the facts that we have.
Now, Andrew, you brought up something that I was not going to discuss in this video, but I can't leave it now because I'm so interested in this. You talked about Disney apparently having been so lackadaisical, and they had gotten into this pattern of potential misbehavior, rising potentially to the level of criminal activity, ongoing, institutionalized, even to the point that we've seen an email address that was like rcid.broker@disney.com, that sort of thing.
And hold on, at Disney.com. So RCID, a government, right?
Right.
Broker, they are positioning themselves as a securities broker. They were trading municipal bonds at Disney.com.
So here's my question, Andrew. This is what I've come up with, because I've really been thinking about, why did Disney enter into this arena with such abashed confidence when they took on Florida? And I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I think that Disney's viewpoint was there was no way that Florida could touch them because of the bond issue, because it would tank the bonds, and that would tank the whole system in place. And so that's what I think was their belief that made them invincible. Do you think that, or was there something else?
I often think, no, I certainly think that is a part of it, because I often think these are multiple factors, multiple variant, and that is definitely a variant. I would agree with you 100% that thinking about the bonds and thinking, well, they're not going to invalidate almost $1 billion in bonds, right? They're not going to do that, right? There's no way they would invalidate $1 billion of bonds. Well, actually, the issue is now you've got bondholders which are left holding the bag. You've got securities which have multiple failed disclosures in them. It appears that the disclosures are not there, that the commitments to maintain the infrastructure are being broken. These are serious crimes at a federal level and at a state level. So I don't think they can turn a blind eye to that, but I certainly think that the bonds was one thing, the hubris was another. We've done this for 60 years. We're just going to continue to do it like this. And the fact that they've been lackadaisical regarding RCID in many respects. So I think this is something that was a long time coming. And as somebody who worked with special districts, who represented all of the special districts surrounding RCID and also worked directly with, rather across the table from RCID, which was a big pain, I can tell you I saw this coming, and they were warned. They were told that you should not do these things, that you should not be on both sides of the deal. But I saw how, when I was a lawyer, when I was representing special districts, I saw, hey, look, isn't there a conflict on your side? Aren't you conflicted representing Disney and RCID? Of course, they would just pass that off. They would just shirk that off, and they never took that warning seriously.
Pride comes before the fall. Now I want to take a look, Andrew, as you correctly assessed. The Walt Disney Company had a number of allegations they were making against the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District, cftod. Now that is down to one, and cftod is requesting that one remaining allegation be tossed out. This from the Oversight District's own website. Number one, federal courts should abstain because this case presents an unsettled question of state law. Number two, Disney's development agreement and restrictive covenants were never valid. Number three, Disney's First Amendment claims are meritless. These are the reasons for which cftod has sought to have this remaining allegation tossed out. Andrew, what do you think is the likelihood that this is just not expunged, but tossed away?
But dismissed? Yeah, these are extremely strong reasons. So you have three principles at play here. Number one is abstention. Abstention is huge. Federal courts are not supposed to be your go-to. In fact, the only reason why you're going there is because you have a conflict between parties of different states, which is not what we have here, or there is a constitutional question. Now, the Disney clearly drummed up these constitutional questions to get it into federal court instead of state court, because they understood the numerous state crimes and numerous state issues that might be brought up if they were brought in state court, because there's all these other claims they can bring at the state level, particularly regarding the corruption of public officials, the misuse of public funds. They didn't want this to go anywhere near state court. They thought, if we just make this a federal issue, we make this about speech, we may have a shot, particularly if we get an activist judge. And initially, they did get the activist judge that had came out and said many bad things about DeSantis, that clearly openly despised DeSantis, did not like DeSantis, and was quite pro-Disney. However, that judge ended up recusing themselves in a very questionable manner, but that aside, and they have a new judge who is technically a conservative, but appears to be a judge that has a fairly good track record and a fairly honest track record as a judge. Looking at that, abstention, that is giving the state preference over the federal government, is a huge principle in the law, and in and of itself is enough by itself to merit leaving this out and actually dismissing this case and allowing this to proceed at state court. And mind you, the state court case has been delayed. They're having a delay on the motion of summary judgment till March. This judge in this case said he's going to rule on this in the next few weeks. So we are going to have a decision on this very, very, very soon.
And if this is dismissed, then it's just Florida versus Disney at that point, correct? All the Disney accusations against Florida will at that point be only in the public realm, not in the courtroom.
Yeah, at this point, if the federal case is dismissed, first of all, there's no more case against Ron DeSantis, because Ron DeSantis is not a party to the state case. So that's all out. And now is the cftod only in state court. It's the CFTOD versus Disney regarding their shady 11th hour agreements. And the scrutiny is on the fact that these 11th hour agreements were illegal, which is point number 2, which is absolutely a strong point. I do believe that in the state court, the cftod CFTOD prevails because they have so many reasons why those agreements are not valid, and it only takes one reason to invalidate those agreements, and they've got dozen. So I think that the cftod prevails in the state court, which is reason number 2. They're likely to prevail for that in that case, and you can see that that's very clear. It's very transparent under state law. And then you have number 3, which is the meritlessness of the claims. Well, they're not. The biggest thing about the speech arguments is, how does this impact speech? It doesn't impact Disney at all. Disney is not Reedy Creek.
Right. Disney's a third party.
Disney is a third party. How does disbanding a government, which you are not, impact your speech?
Andrew, are you shocked that Disney has yet to say, we're a third party? We're a third party. We don't want any part of this. We're not Creek, we promise.
It's insane because it's now hurting them at a state level, and they're going to be able to use their own statements against them in the potential criminal proceedings in the future. Disney's own statements and their own positioning are going to come back to bite them and absolutely find them in the hot seat in terms of criminal liability. So Disney is digging themselves in deeper and deeper and deeper. In fact, this whole argument that which the sftod has made, that this was always a sham government, that it was never separate, never independent, and thus never constituted a government. Yeah, that's a big deal because now you've got potentially $1 billion in bonds and bondholders that can sue Disney for making material misrepresentations on those bonds, because Disney actually did make representations on those bonds. So you've got massive liability for Disney here, massive criminal liability that's possible for Disney employees and RCID employees. And you've got this case where I believe, based on those 3 factors, will be dismissed in the next few weeks. That's my prediction. And I think it's very likely. Now, there is some potential that the judge might want to see where the Florida case goes. But I think based on the speed, the prudent thing for that judge to do is to dismiss the case. And once the Florida case is resolved, if Disney won, then sure, Disney can refile in federal court. But at this point in time, Disney's got to go through that state case. And by the way, I don't think they're going to win that state case. So I think the most likely thing is the judge dismisses it, lets this play out in state court. It's obvious that this is a state court case now. Disney has moved most of those claims, or tried to move most of their federal claims, to state court. So clearly this is something that should have been in state court to begin with. So I think the judge will properly dismiss this. I think we're going to see this proceed as a state case.
So we are finally getting responses from Disney now. And I want to take a look at the 2 types of responses. The first is in the courtroom. This coming from North Carolina Lawyers Weekly.com, which has this. It says, in asking the judge to deny DeSantis' motion to dismiss, Disney has accused DeSantis and his appointees of using political institutions to punish disfavored viewpoints. That premise is not just legally unsupported, it is profoundly un-American, Disney said in court papers. I also find it funny that in this article it says, since the takeover, more than 10% of the district's 370 employees have left their jobs, with many saying in exit interviews that the district has been politicized and is now permeated by cronyism. And it's like, well, what company out there hasn't lost 10% of their workforce, in any given year? 5% are retiring, 5% are moving on to a different company or someplace, and those who are leaving, some percentage of them are disgruntled. So, that's not news, that's mundanity. The other response that we have, Andrew, comes from Fox 35 Orlando. I read this to Mike the other day, and he couldn't believe it. So I want to read it to you and get your take on this.
Sure.
This, of course, is the public response, not the court response. Here's what Disney says. This report, talking about the audit with the prima facie exhibits, this report is an exercise in revisionist history. It is neither objective nor credible and only seeks to advance sftod's interests in its wasteful litigation that could derail investment within the district, i.e., we're not going to invest anymore in Disney World if you investigate us. Further, it does not change the fact that the sftod board was appointed by the governor to punish Disney for exercising its constitutional right to free speech. This report also comes on the heels of numerous reports in the media which have raised legitimate concerns around the governance of the district under its new leadership. While the board may wish to undermine Disney's ability to continue investing in the region, we are extremely proud of our impact on the Central Florida economy over the past half century, and we remain committed to maintaining the highest quality experience for the tens of millions of guests who visit Walt Disney World each year. Andrew, I'm going to ask you a question about this that's a little different. Well, let me spin the question so I get you thinking, okay? I want you to be on the other side of the table for a moment.
Disney side, yeah.
If you were representing Disney and you've got to figure out how do you get the public on your side and how do you worm your way through this legal situation, what would be your response to what was just unleashed on them versus what they've said?
So how I would turn that around, I would spin that. I mean, first of all, if I was on the Disney side, they would have to pay me a lot of money because at this point, Disney is absolutely in trouble. They've worked themselves into a position where even for a good lawyer, this is really a lose-lose.
So this is a lose-less situation. Try to lose less than you would otherwise.
I mean, the correct solution has always been from Disney's side to settle with the state of Florida to say, okay, we're going to actually quiet the noise. See, this whole quiet the noise thing does not mean continue to lie, continue to point fingers, continue to deceive, and do not come to the bargaining table. If I am Disney's lawyers, I say, go right now, settle the Florida case, get that done, and then let's move on with doing business. This is going to be a lot easier than facing a slew of criminal charges. But at this point, they've got a slew of criminal charges, and this just ignores the liability for that at all whatsoever.
Right? They could fall in front of the. They could acquiesce to everything at this point. You still think that the criminal side of this is going to happen now? It's too late.
Correct. It's too late.
Gotcha.
We've passed the barrier where there's enough evidence, enough documents where it's too late for them to go back. They have to face it. They're going to face it. So to a certain extent, I know why they're ignoring it. It makes sense why their lawyers are ignoring it because the second they address it, it becomes something they have to disclose in their SEC filings. It becomes something they have to disclose
that's a
in
great
bond
point.
documents.
That is a great point. I never thought of that.
Yeah.
They cannot bring up a new argument.
Yep.
So all they had was to use the same tired old fiddle of political repercussions.
Okay, but Andrew, explain that though.
Yes.
We can't just walk past that point. It's too good.
Sure.
Explain why that would impact their SEC filings and why that's important to the audience.
Okay, it's very important for them to file things correctly with the SEC because if you have any sort of risk or liability, you need to disclose that because they are a publicly traded company. And by the way, those RCID bonds, those municipal bonds, are public bonds. And therefore, just like you have to make public disclosures about your companies, you have to make public disclosures about your bonds. You have to disclose every single risk to those bonds and risk to your company. Well, it is a giant risk when your company is facing severe criminal liability. That's one of the clearest risks out there on the face of the earth. If you're facing a lawsuit and litigation, you actually need to expressly disclose this. Now, they have disclosed the existing Florida litigation. However, they would need to separately disclose criminal penalties against an investigation into Disney employees. This is absolutely huge. So what they're trying to do is because they've already disclosed the Florida litigation, they're trying to say, oh, this all falls under Florida litigation. This all falls under political speech. Therefore, we don't need to disclose it.
Right.
That's what the lawyers are thinking right now. And that's the answer they've got for now. They will have to respond to it when the charges are filed. They will have to disclose it, certainly, when charges are actually filed.
But it's a massive headache once it happens.
Yes. So what they're trying to do in this is wrap it up in something in the past. They're trying to use the same old tired song and dance. They're also trying to do it's not you, it's me. Remember, Disney was in Disney shills, Disney affiliates. They were trying to push the narrative of cronyism at the CFTOD and corruption at the CFTOD because they knew this report was coming out on their corruption, their decades of corruption.
Right, and that's so. This one board member who's her husband's caught up in a situation. It's who knows what's going to happen there. But when people bring that up and say, well, this side's corrupt as well, and all of that, it's like, one side is institutionalized for decades and involves a tremendous number of people, and one is a relationship issue that may go into the criminal side of things, but it's still just a couple with another person who's making a claim.
Right.
That's a categorical difference in scope and scale, and that's why we don't really cover it here because at worst, cftod's going to switch out a board member and move on. With Disney, you're looking at decade after decade after decade of all of these things that could actually be prosecuted under RICO laws. So it's a struggle for me to figure out how I'm going to make those two transgressions be equal there. So that's why we don't treat them as equal here on this channel. But Andrew, you've done a fantastic job of covering all of this. I guess you could say that you are well suited to the job, considering you've sat at the table with so many of these same people who are now involved. And I suspect that from the Disney side of it, you're glad you're not involved having to defend Disney. But I look forward to watching more of your content. It's been phenomenal. You've been on the ball. You predicted every single step of the way. And for all of those who have attempted to wade into the waters of legal analysis, who previously were Disney vloggers, bloggers, and pixie dusters, I don't think that they have managed it well. They should have been listening to you more, and they could have relayed what was really going to happen. Andrew, thank you for being by, and tell us.
My pleasure.
Tell us what do you have coming up in your analysis of Disney?
Sure. So I have, I'll do a video certainly on this. It'll come out probably around the same time yours will. So we'll be talking about that. But also I want to go through the predictions I made a year ago. And that's something that's coming up, is matching up what I said was going to happen a year ago with what is happening now, because I effectively called this shot for shot. And I called some of the exact same crimes that are implicated here by this. I also want to break down the exact pieces of evidence for each crime, because people always cry, what evidence? What evidence? Now, I've already shown the major receipts, but I want to group them because there's so many. So I've been working behind the scenes to kind of collect these exhibits to show these. I'll also be posting some of this on Twitter as well. So hang out there, check me out there, The Legal Mindset. You can catch me over on Twitter, and of course, Legal Mindset on YouTube for all of this, all of these updates on Disney's legal liability. In this case, and in many other cases where Disney is absolutely messing up in the boardroom and the courtroom.
And I cannot wait to watch those victory laps as they happen. Well-deserved, Andrew. And the only thing that I would say is, I don't think we anticipated that Disney would be as dumb as they have been. We thought that at some point they would correct to some degree. So far, they have not. Hubris reigns supreme at the House of Mouse. Folks, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe. When you click it, you stick it to the algorithms. Hit the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. And thank you once again for hanging in with me as I struggle through laryngitis. Hopefully, I'll be back to normal real soon, ladies and gentlemen. All right, that's it. That's a wrap, folks. Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Wilton, you know you're not allowed in the kitchen. And, it smells like burning dog hair. What are you doing in here?
Well, I got a DM from Slade Wilson on how to roast Jonas. I mean, I didn't bother reading it, because I already have the perfect plan.
Wait a minute. So you're challenging Slade?
Well, not really. It's more like what Caffeine Kennedy and Kevin Feige do to Disney. A tag team of destruction. Plus, we're also making sure that everyone knows to subscribe to WDW Pro this Christmas.
Well, I appreciate you helping Pro, but doing one good thing does not make up for both of you doing a bad thing. Pro's making sure everyone gets accurate information and stays ahead of the culture curve, but, oh man, what is that smell? You're not really...
Oh, yeah. No, I'm literally roasting Jonas in the oven. I mean, it was kind of confusing when we were going with that line of questioning in the first place.
Roasting someone's a figure of speech. You don't actually cook them. Somebody. Oh my. Hang on, Jonas. Well, I hope you're happy about what you've done this Christmas, Wilton. You almost ended Jonas.
On the brighter side, he looks great with that new tan. I guess you could say I gifted him a nice complexion.